With due permission, can we begin, Father?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. A very good morning, our eminent guest, Professor Dr. Joseph Dorai-Raj, Principal Reverend Father Dr. A. Rex Angelo, Vice Principal Reverend Father Dr. Sherry George, Vice Principal Reverend Father Dr. Raymond Kelvin, all my dear colleagues and participants. I welcome you all on day 2 of the NAAC Induction workshop. Yesterday, we all had experienced a knowledge-enhancing session on NAAC, an overview of accreditation framework. I wish to read out the few key outlines and highlights of yesterday's learning. Professor Joseph guided us that being an affiliated college, we should focus upon strong teaching learning aspects. We all should have, we all should develop a tendency of self-introspection, clear explanation of all the key 7 criteria and their respective indicators, and 3 mantras, that is criteria, key indicators, and matrices, were very well explained. Sir also gave us the mandates for colleges, that is teaching learning, research, extension, and outreach activities. And overall, we should focus upon the holistic education in order to make our students employable. Sir also guided us on how to fix and set our priorities for attaining good grades. So moving on, today we all shall get to learn the detailed ideas and practical aspects about how we, being an affiliated college, should prepare for our first cycle of assessment. So we have among us Professor Dr. Dorai-Raj, having his rich experience of assessing universities and colleges since 2010. And being the chairperson of the NAAC peer team several times, Sir will give us a helping hand. On behalf of IQAC and steering committee, I request you, sir, to guide and give us your valuable mantras to grab good scores in all the key indicators. Over to you, sir. Joseph, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear friends. I'm once again happy to meet you online for this NAAC induction workshop. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, fine. Reverend Dr. A. Rex Angelo, Principal, St. Xavier's College, Jaipur. Reverend Father George, the Vice Principal. Reverend Father Raymond, the Vice Principal. Professor Yashwardhan Singh, Coordinator, IQAC, St. Xavier's College, Jaipur. Dr. Bakshi, the Program Coordinator for this NAAC induction workshop. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. I listened to the brief report on yesterday's session. I'm happy it was useful to you, and I am sure and I assure you that today's deliberations also will be useful to you. Yesterday, my purpose was to give you a bird's eye view of NAAC assessment and accreditation. So it was an overview and it was a perception in general. Now today's presentation will be focused. What I plan to do is, with reference to each of the 7 criteria, what should you at St. Xavier's College, Jaipur do? And in the second part of the presentation, I'll be giving you some 25 tips, and depending on the time available, I will add one more section where I would like to talk about what do the A+ institutions and the A++ institutions possess. What is it that we can learn from them? Okay, so I will do my PowerPoint presentation, and today we will have at least 15 minutes for questions and answers and clarifications. Yesterday, because of the shortage of time, we could not have questions and answers, but today we will certainly have some questions and answers and also some clarifications. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, the topic for today's presentation is NAAC assessment and accreditation, a roadmap for getting a better grade. Now you at St. Xavier's College, Jaipur, you're planning to go in for the first cycle of NAAC assessment and accreditation. So what is the roadmap that you need in order to get a better grade. So this would be the focus of my presentation. And as I said a short while ago, my presentation today is divided into three parts or three units. In the first part of my presentation, I will talk about the 7 criteria, and with reference to each of the 7 criteria, what is to be done, what is mandatory and what is desirable. So this is the first part of the presentation, and this is the core of the presentation. I would be spending at least some 40 to 45 minutes talking about, with reference to each of the 7 criteria, what is to be done, what is mandatory and what is desirable. Then in the second part of the presentation, yesterday I went through your website and I went through all the sections of your website and I noted down a lot of points. Now, having that as the background, having that as the backdrop, I would like to offer the institution 25 concrete suggestions which will help you to attain a better grade when you go in for the first cycle of NAAC assessment and accreditation. Now, the third part of the presentation is interesting. Very often we ask ourselves, very often vice chancellors ask, very often principals ask, okay, that institution has got A+, this university has got A++. On what basis, on what grounds did those institutions get a very high grade, A+ or A++, which means they have something unique, they possess something unique. What is that? We would like to know, and if possible, we would like to adopt it and customize it for our own institution. So therefore, towards the end, the third part of the presentation, what do these A+ and A++ institutions possess? And what is it that we can learn from these institutions so that we are also able to get a better grade in the NAAC assessment and accreditation. So dear friends, this is the scheme of the presentation. Now, we have already discussed this slide. The mantra for NAAC is criteria, key indicators, and metrics. And metrics are divided into 2 categories. Quantitative metrics based on data, numerical data, and qualitative data. So yesterday we looked into this slide. Just a recap. So NAAC operates on the basis of 7 criteria, whether it is a university or an autonomous college or an affiliated or a constituent college. The first criterion is curricular aspects. The second is teaching, learning, and evaluation. The third is research and innovations and extension and outreach activities. The fourth criterion talks about the physical facilities available on campus, infrastructure and learning resources. The fifth criterion talks about what is the support system that is available to students, either for jobs or for higher studies and for mentoring. Then the sixth criterion talks about the administration, governance, leadership, and management. And the last criterion talks about institutional values. There are 5 core values and 2 best practices. And you also need to talk about the institutional uniqueness or distinctiveness. So yesterday we had a look at it. And yesterday I clarified this also. As far as St. Xavier's Jaipur is concerned, please go to the last column. As far as your institution is concerned, you have 7 criteria, you have 32 key indicators, and you have 96 metrics, 36 qualitative metrics and 60 quantitative metrics. And with reference to each criterion, how many quantitative metrics and how many qualitative metrics, all these we talked about yesterday. So for today, the agenda is with reference to each criterion, with reference to each of the 7 criteria, what should your institution do? Now, I have divided this into 2 parts. Now, what is mandatory? What is to be done? You don't have an option. You don't have a choice. This is mandatory, so therefore you have to do it. Now, there is another component. There is an additional component. It is not mandatory. It is not compulsory. But if you do it, you are in a better position to get a better grade. So what is to be done and what is desirable? Now, yesterday I made it very clear, since you are an affiliated college, you do not design your curriculum. Instead, Rajasthan University designs your curriculum and passes it on to you for implementation. So as far as the curriculum is concerned and as far as the examination system is concerned, you have very little to do because that is the job, that is the responsibility of Rajasthan University because you are an affiliated college. Okay, so which means under curricular aspects, you cannot do much. The reason is you are an affiliated college, the curriculum is given to you and you have to transact curriculum. But at the same time, there are certain areas, there are certain possibilities where you can focus on, where you can concentrate. So I would like to talk about four such options. Number one, I want every department, and this is my request, and later I am sure Father Principal will take it up, Father Angelo will take it up. Every department should start at least one certificate course. For instance, I'll give you some example. For instance, the Department of English. I know the Department of English is vibrant. You offer an undergraduate program, you also offer a master's program. You can start a certificate course in spoken English. Okay. Now, what is a certificate course and what is a diploma course? If a program is run for 3 months, it is a certificate course. And if a program is run for 2 semesters, it is a diploma course. Okay, so you can have a certificate course level 1 and you can have a certificate course level 2. If a student completes level 1 and level 2, he or she earns a diploma. Now, there are two questions. When you run a certificate course or a diploma course, should you charge the students? And number two, who will be the resource person? Now, regarding the fee to be collected, what I suggest is you should collect a nominal fee, otherwise students will not take it seriously. So any certificate course, whether it is offered by the Department of Business Administration or English or Sciences, some nominal fee should be collected. Now, the second question, who should offer the certificate course? Now, I have two answers. Number one, it is better that you yourself run the certificate course. You can do it in the evenings. You can do it outside class hours. Or if it is a specialized area, you can get resource persons from outside. Maybe computer science, you want to offer a program in, let us say, Python, and if you realize that there are not enough teachers to handle Python, then maybe you can invite somebody from Rajasthan University or maybe some expert from Rajasthan, from Jaipur, to offer that certificate program, and you can pay him or her. Okay, but the first point that I want to emphasize is job oriented, value added diploma courses and certificate courses should be run by every department. In every semester, every department. This is my first suggestion. Now, my second suggestion is please go to the third point. I am not very sure whether the choice-based credit system has already been implemented in Rajasthan University. I am not aware of it. Whereas in many universities all over the country, they have introduced this choice-based credit system. Now, yesterday I gave you a brief idea of the choice-based credit system. For instance, I would, when I go to the canteen, when I go to a hotel, I would like to eat idli and vadai and sambar. Whereas my wife going to the same canteen with me or going to the same hotel with me, instead of idli, she may prefer dosai, vadai, and sambar. So this is called the cafeteria model, originally introduced in the United States of America. Now the UGC mandates that all institutions, all higher educational institutions should go in for the choice-based credit system. And what is the greatest advantage of the CBCS, the choice-based credit system? The greatest merit or the greatest advantage is there is a lot of flexibility. Okay. Now I can't force my wife to eat idli. I like idli, she likes dosa. So let her eat what she wants and let me eat what I want. So this is the cafeteria model. So the choice-based credit system is very important. So what I suggest is, now this year it is too late, it is not possible. So throughout the academic year, you organize seminars, you organize workshops on choice-based credit system so that in the next academic year, that is 2022-23, you can implement the choice-based credit system. And and to prepare the staff members, the Jesuit management, the Jesuit administration has to organize at least 2 or 3 seminars and workshops. And you have to work out the number of credits and what would be the mandatory courses and what would be the elective courses, what would be the courses to be offered by the department, and what would be the courses, what would be the interdisciplinary courses. All these you need to work it out at the CBCS. So therefore you need to organize a few seminars and workshops. But at least in the next academic year, you should introduce choice-based credit system. Now, one of the advantages in the choice-based credit system is earlier I talked about the element of flexibility that is inbuilt in the choice-based credit system. There is one more advantage. Please go to the second point. Choice-based credit system encourages interdisciplinary courses. And what do we mean by this? A student, let us say, studying BA English or MA English can opt for a course in administration, business administration and management. Similarly, a student doing BCom can opt for a course in the English department. This is what we mean by interdisciplinary courses. Otherwise, we are all restricted by the disciplinary boundaries. So once you introduce the choice-based credit system, your students can go to other departments and other department students can come to your department for 1 or 2 interdisciplinary courses. So this makes the curriculum enriching. And not only that, this prepares the students to adopt a broad outlook of it. Okay, and please go to the last point. And once you introduce the choice-based credit system, you should ensure that there are a lot of electives, because look at the system. The system is choice-based. Only when you offer 2 electives, 3 electives, 4 electives, then the students can choose something. So it is choice-based. In many institutions, what happens is they argue, they claim that they have introduced the choice-based credit system, but then they have only 1 elective. So it becomes a compulsory elective. And that is not the true spirit of CBCs. Okay, so to sum up, with regard to the first criterion, I would like to make 2 observations. You don't have much to do with regard to the first criterion because you being an affiliated institution, the curriculum is designed by Rajasthan University and it is given to you for transaction and implementation. Therefore, against this backdrop, what you can do is you can do 2 things. Number one, introduce a lot of job-oriented, value-added certificate and diploma courses and introduce CBCS. So these are my suggestions with regard to the first criterion. Now, the second criterion, as I said earlier, and as it was also pointed out in the brief report that was read out before my presentation began, as an affiliating college, you need to focus on the second criterion because the second criterion alone carries 35% of the scores, 350. So therefore, your focus, your concentration should be on the second criterion. Now, I would like to give at least 8 suggestions as far as the second criterion is concerned. Now, yesterday we talked about student profile and diversity. And what do we mean by student diversity? Student diversity means 2 things. One is students from diverse or different economic and social backgrounds. That is one meaning of student diversity. There is another meaning of student diversity, and I want you to focus on this. Now, look at your own students. How many are from Jaipur and how many are from other parts of Rajasthan? So, is there student diversity? Now, as a NAAC assessor, what we find is whether it is a college or a university, they mostly cater to their own region. As a result of which, there is very little student diversity. So therefore, when you do your admissions, this is the admission time. Okay, so you should try to attract students from other districts of Rajasthan. And once you enjoy a good reputation, uh, and I believe St. Xavier's Jaipur enjoys a good reputation, even students from other states, the neighboring states, Haryana or Rajasthan or even Delhi, will come to St. Xavier's Jaipur. So you have to consciously aim at and work towards ensuring student diversity. In other words, You need to campaign. I repeat, you need to campaign and you need to attract students from other parts of Rajasthan. Now, just as we talked about the student profile, we also need to emphasize the teacher profile. Now, what about the teachers? How many have cleared NET? How many have cleared sets? I don't know how they call it in Rajasthan. In some states, they call it state eligibility test. And how many of you have PhDs? Okay, so this is very important. Just as the student profile is important, more important is the teacher profile. And because this criterion focuses on teaching, learning, and evaluation. How much of technology in classrooms? Now, because of the pandemic, we are forced to migrate to the online mode. So therefore, we do have technology in classrooms. Now, exam reforms. Earlier, when I was talking about the first criterion, I made a very clear mention that as far as the curriculum is concerned and as far as the examination system is concerned, you don't have to do much because that is the job of the affiliating university. Okay, but still I want you to introduce some reforms in examination. Some of you must be wondering, the question papers are given by the Rajasthan University, the examination pattern is given by Rajasthan University, what can we do? Now you can do something. Now we have internal components and external components. The semester examinations, that is taken care of by the affiliating university. Now what about the internal exams? In different institutions, they call it by different names. In my own university, we call it CFA, continuous formative assessment. In some institutions, they call it continuous internal assessment. Okay, so the internal exams, that comes under your purview. So you can think of some exam reforms. Particularly, you can think of online testing. Okay. Next is now the UGC mandates that you have to prepare this OBE. What is this OBE? Outcome based education. I repeat, outcome based education. And now this has picked up because now UGC insists and NAAC also insists that all institutions, whether you are a university or an autonomous college or an affiliated or a constituent college, you should have implemented what is called outcome based education. And recently, the UGC prepared a document called the LOCF. I talk about it in a different slide. LOCF. L stands for learning, O stands for outcome based, C stands for curriculum, and F stands for framework. So this is a document, a 10-page document, and this is available on the UGC website. So I request for the principal to constitute a committee to look into this LOCF, the document prepared and released by the UGC, so that at least in the next academic year, 22-23, you can introduce this outcome-based education. Basically, it talks about two things: program outcomes, program specific outcomes, and course outcomes. So this is the first part of the outcome-based education. So program refers to BA English is a program, MA English is a program, BBA is a program. Course would mean, okay, Shakespeare is one of the courses under BA English. British poetry is one of the courses under BA English. So we need to make a clear distinction between programs on the one hand and courses on the other. So program outcomes, program specific outcomes, and course outcomes. So this is the first part or the first component of outcome-based education. Now the second part or the second component of outcome-based education is mapping and attainment. Because before you begin your classes, before you begin the academic year, you declare that a student studying this particular program and these particular courses, by the end of the program, by the end of the course, would have achieved this. So this is your claim before the program. Now, at the end of the semester, at the end of the academic year, you should go back to your aims and objectives and find out to what extent you have fulfilled or you have satisfied your aims and objectives. That is called attainment. Okay, you want to find out whether the students have attained the level of outcome that you had planned, that you had envisaged. So maybe a committee could be constituted to look into outcome-based education so that during the next academic year, we can implement outcome-based education. If you find it difficult, maybe you can start with the postgraduate programs. You introduce outcome-based education for the postgraduate programs, and maybe later you can introduce outcome-based education for the undergraduate programs. Now, these days, because of the pandemic, we have resorted to online teaching. So we need to encourage our students to enroll for online courses. And the UGC has also worked out the modalities of credit transfer. I request you to look into the UGC document regarding credit transfer. Now, bridge courses. I'm not very sure whether you organize bridge courses. If you're already organizing bridge courses, my congratulations to you. In case you're not organizing bridge courses, I would request that you organize bridge courses. Okay, now very briefly, what is a bridge course and when should you organize it? I'll answer the second question first. At the beginning of every academic year, I repeat, at the beginning of every academic year, almost all departments need to organize bridge courses. Now let me go to the first question. What is a bridge course and why is it essential? A bridge course is a course that bridges, that serves as a bridge between secondary education and tertiary education, between school education and college education. Now, students coming from school and entering the portals of a college, they may not have confidence, they may not have grasp of the basic concepts and theories, and maybe they have studied in the vernacular medium. Now they have switched over to an English medium instruction. So therefore they need a smooth transition, and to help in this transition, institutions should organize bridge courses. It could be for 7 days, it could be for 10 days, it could be even for 2 weeks. For instance, the Department of Mathematics, what will they do in bridge course? They will do two things. Number one, help the students understand basic concepts, because in the school they memorize, so therefore they have not really learned the mathematical concepts. So when they enter the college, you need to help them so that they understand the basic concepts, the basic mathematical concepts, and it should also help them to switch over from the regional medium to the English medium. And it is here that the Department of English plays a major role or a key role. In addition to organizing the bridge course, remedial courses, because this is one of the important questions that is raised by NAAC. You have slow learners, you have slow achievers. What does the institution do to help the slow learners? In every department, whether it is business administration or English or commerce or sciences, in every department we have bright students and we have not so bright students, slow learners. Okay, how do we help the slow learners? Now, from my own experience as a NAAC assessor for more than 10 years, what I found is this: all institutions claim, without any exception, all institutions claim that they help the slow learners by organizing remedial programs. Fine. Now, I do not doubt it. I'm not a skeptic. I do not doubt it. But the way they organize the remedial programs, that is not professional. Okay. Now, some of the answers that I get is just before the exams, we offer remedial courses, or when a teacher is free, he or she organizes remedial courses. No, you should formalize it. Irrespective of whether the teacher is free, irrespective of whether exams are approaching or not, if you're serious about remedial courses, then you need to formalize it. What is the meaning of formalizing? Okay, there should be a separate timetable for remedial courses. There should be a separate coordinator for remedial courses. Attendance should be taken while conducting the remedial courses, and the pass percentage also should be analyzed before and after to find out the usefulness of remedial courses. And the last suggestion is student satisfaction survey. This comes at the end after you have submitted your SSR. So, two observations. As I said yesterday, the most important criterion as far as Xavier's J4 is concerned is the second criterion, teaching, learning, and evaluation and assessment, because it is this criterion that carries the maximum weightage. And here you can implement a lot of innovations. Okay, and please look into this. At least some suggestions you can implement immediately, and maybe some you can prepare yourself, you can prepare the background, and maybe you can implement them in the next academic year. Now, I have already talked about the outcome-based education, and please look at the fourth line. This is the document that I was referring to. Refer to UGC's LOC, Learning Outcome-Based Curriculum Framework on Outcome-Based Education. And this is on Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom was an American educationist. I am not very sure. I think in the 1930s or 1940s, he talked about the taxonomy, and now they have revised it. So what is this taxonomy? Okay, for average students, what should you do? For slow learners, what should you do? And for higher learners, advanced learners, what should you do? Okay, now look at our question paper. Our question paper is meant for everybody, whether you are a slow learner or an advanced learner. Whereas now Bloom's taxonomy would tell us they should be questions which are targeted at the slow learners, and they should also be questions which are aimed at assessing the advanced learners. Now, for the slow learners, recall, remember, and recall. This is to test the memory. Whereas for advanced learners, for higher achievers, as evaluation and application. Okay, so questions which are evaluative in nature, where the student has to think on his or her feet, and questions which demand application of a concept or a theory to a given context or an ecosystem. That is a difficult question, challenging question, and that is meant for the advanced learners. Now, I also talked about attainment. Attainment means you want to find out whether students have attained, have reached the level that you had envisaged before the commencement of the program. So this is about Bloom's taxonomy, and I am sure the principal would organize a couple of seminars and workshops on outcome-based education. Now, this is about student satisfaction survey. This comes only after you submit your SSR, so you needn't worry about it now. Now, let us go to the third criterion. For universities, the third criterion matters a lot because, as I said earlier, based on the Humboldtian model, a university primarily it is meant for research, teaching and research, whereas a college, the primary job is teaching. Okay, but at the same time, colleges also have to do some research, and the marks allotted for the third criterion is 120. Now, as far as research is concerned, I have given a few suggestions, and as far as extension is concerned, I have given 4 suggestions. Fine. Now, yesterday I looked into your website, and your college has had a tremendous growth, a phenomenal growth, because it was started only recently. In the last 10 to 17 years, your college has had a phenomenal growth. I'm very happy about it. My hearty congratulations to the Jesuit administration and to all the teaching faculty, because within a short period, you have achieved a lot. You have ERP, you have journals, you have started postgraduate courses, you have got permanent affiliation, and you have a cell for intellectual property rights. You have achieved a lot. I'm very happy about it. My hearty congratulations. But you should take it forward. Okay, as I said yesterday, every staff member every year should have at least one publication in a peer-reviewed journal. Now, very often what happens is the science departments are strong when it comes to publications and projects, and the arts departments or the humanities department, particularly the languages department, they are relatively weak in terms of publications and projects. So therefore, I would request and appeal to the faculty members in the humanities section or in the arts section to look into publications and projects. At least one paper per year in a peer-reviewed journal. We call it UGCK journal. Okay, so please think of it. It is very much possible. Now, the second point is an important point. I am happy to know that you have 3 journals, and to be very frank, I was very surprised because in my university we have only two journals, whereas in your college, yours is only a college, and that too a college established very recently. You have three journals, and this is amazing, and I'm very happy about it. My congratulations. But I want to ask you two questions. Question number one: what about the editorial board? Okay, who serves on the editorial board? Your own faculty members, or 30 to 40% from your own institution, and the remaining 50 to 60% from other universities, even from outside the country. So the editorial board, that matters a lot, because in many institutions what happens is it becomes an in-house journal, and an in-house journal is not appreciated. Okay, now what is an in-house journal? The entire editorial board consists of the locally available members, and all the articles are written by their own staff members. This is what we call an in-house journal. So therefore, I would like to ask you, I'm happy that you have three journals, but are these in-house journals? Okay, so you needn't answer me. Okay, you can have a session later. Then I'm happy that you have developed the incubators to incubate the ideas of students and staff, particularly the entrepreneurs. This is a plus point. And I'm also happy to know that you have a cell for intellectual property rights. I'm very happy about it. Congratulations. So this is the first part. This is about research and innovations. Now coming to extensions. Now, as I said yesterday, the A plus and the A plus plus institutions, if you look into their best practices, for instance, St. Xavier's College, Palamkottai in Tamil Nadu, they got something like 5.76, A double plus. St. Teresa's College, Ernakulam, they got a very high grade, A double plus plus, sorry, A plus plus. St. Joseph's College, Trichy, where Father Rick studied, where I studied, they have got A plus plus. So if you look into these colleges, particularly their best practices, one of the two best practices is about the innovative and very meaningful and relevant extension activities that they carry out. Okay, so you can also think of very good extension activities. Now I would like to give two suggestions. Number one, now I have visited Rajasthan 3 times for NAAC. One was a university and the other two were colleges, and I visited a lot of colleges in the north. And my experience as far as extension is concerned is this. Now, whenever I visit colleges in the the northern part of India, that includes the eastern part, the western part, and the eastern part as well. When the PAT members ask the principal and the faculty members, are your students involved in extension activities? The answer is yes. But then later we find out that not all students of the college are involved in extension activities, only the NSS volunteers and the NCC cadets. How many NSS volunteers are there? Hardly 200 or 300. How many NCC cadets? Hardly 100 or 200. So which means only a tiny percentage of the student population is involved in extension activities. Or to put it negatively, a large number of students do not involve themselves in extension activities. Now, at this juncture, we need to ask ourselves, what is the purpose of extension activities? Now, some staff members and some students will think this is contributing our service to the villagers. No, that is not the purpose of extension and outreach activities. The purpose of undertaking extension and outreach activities is to help the students to develop an awareness of the environment where poor people live, and also to develop a consciousness. That is the purpose of extension activities and outreach activities. The students should know that there are poor students, there are people who are living below the poverty line, that there are migrant laborers, they do not have 3 meals to eat, and no government schemes for them because they do not have a ration card, they do not have an Aadhaar card. Okay, because they are living in ivory towers, they do not know the hard reality. So the purpose of extension activities is to make students aware of these harsh realities. So therefore, two suggestions. Number one, all the students of the institution should be involved in some kind of an extension activity, and the outreach activity should be of two categories. Number one, now you ask the English students, what about extension activities? They say we do blood donation, we do tree planting, we clean the roads, and then we clean the public square. Fine. I go to the Department of Chemistry. I ask them, what kind of outreach activities do you undertake? They also give the same answer: tree planting, blood donation, cleaning. Okay, all this is fine. Now, what I would suggest is you think of two levels. One is common extension activities. Now, what do I mean by common extension activities? Tree planting, blood donation, cleaning of the village courtyard, or cleaning of the village temple. So these are common. Then you can also think of subject specific or subject oriented extension activities. For instance, the Department of English. Okay, so they can do blood donation, they can do tree planting, they can also go to the local panchayat school or the local rural school or the local government school, teach them some spoken English, teach them some poetry, teach them some basic writing skills. This is what I mean by subject oriented or subject specific extension. So the third criterion, part of it talks about research and part of it talks about extension and outreach activities. Now, coming to the fourth criterion, infrastructure. The Jesuit management, the Jesuits are known for building up infrastructure, whether you go to St. Xavier's Palinkote or St. Xavier's Calcutta or Loyola College Chennai or Andhra Loyola College Vijayawada, where Father Rex was and where I taught for 1 year. They have excellent infrastructure, so there is no complaint as far as the physical facilities are concerned. But I want to give you a suggestion. Now, in the library, according to the revised NAAC format and methodology, we insist that there should be a corner, there should be a shelf for rare books. Okay, maybe you have some manuscripts. Okay, so that is to be treasured. Okay, so keep it in a separate place. You have some rare books, out of publication books. Okay, books published 200 years ago. Maybe there is only a single copy, or maybe there are only two copies. One copy is in the university library and you have a copy. So if you have rare books, if you have some manuscripts, so please preserve them and keep them in a separate place in the library. Okay, so this will help posterity. And when you go for NAAC assessment and accreditation, this will also help you to gather some additional points. Now, when we go to the seventh criterion, we will be talking about the physically challenged students. Okay. Now, what are the facilities that you create for the visually challenged students? Okay. Now, do you have braille books? Do you have talking books? Do you have audio books? In many institutions, the answer that I get from the principal is when I ask them about braille books or audio books, the answer is at at the moment, at present, we do not have any blind students, so therefore there is no need for any braille books or audio books. No, this is not a good answer. You should be futuristic. Maybe this year you do not have any blind students. What if next year, the following year, you have some blind students? Okay, so therefore the librarian, I am sure the college librarian is listening to me. Okay, he or she. So please build up your library in terms of rare books, in terms of manuscripts, in terms of audio books or talking books. And what is a talking book? Nothing. A textbook converted into an audio medium meant for the visually challenged, braille books. Okay. Now, what about access to electronic database? And what is the computer student ratio? Okay, so 1 is to 20 would be ideal. 1 is to 40, 1 is to 60, it is not good. Then what are the facilities available for women? Do they have separate washrooms? Do they have a separate staff room? Do you have an incinerator? Do you have a napkin vending machine? So all these are important points as far as the facilities for women are concerned. Then is your campus a disabled friendly campus? I will talk about it a little later. And is your campus a Wi-Fi enabled campus? So this is as far as the infrastructure is concerned. Next, we go to the fifth criterion, student support and progression. It carries 130 points. I would like to ask you a series of questions. Do you have a placement cell? Do you have a placement bureau? Do you have a placement officer? And what is the job of the placement officer? To help students in getting placed in educational institutions, in factories, in industries, in companies. In other words, to get them a job. Okay, so in the same vein, do you have a career guidance cell? Do you have a career guidance bureau? Okay, every institution should have either a placement cell or a placement cum career guidance cell. This is very important. Number two, grievance cell. Okay, because NAAC would like to know if you have a grievance cell and how many grievances were reported during each academic year, and every academic year how many grievances were reported and how many grievances were addressed or resolved. So this is very important. Okay, so different institutions practice different methodologies. In some cases the principal gives his or her personal email ID and informs the students, if anyone has any grievance, you please send me a personal email. So this is one way of addressing the grievances. In some institutions that I have visited, they keep boxes where the students can drop their complaints or grievances. Now, whatever it is, whatever mechanism you want to adopt, you go ahead. But please see to it that you have a grievance cell. And when NAAC visits, when the peer team visits you, they would ask you in the last 5 years, in the last 4 years, in the last 3 years, how many grievances were reported and how many were resolved. So you should be able to give a convincing answer with evidence. Now, the fourth point is an important point, internships. Very often, many students are not aware that they have to go for internships. Now, by internships, I mean two things. Now, your own students, as part of the curriculum, I repeat, your own students, for instance, an MBA student or an MA English student, as part of his or her curriculum, he or she has to go for, let us say, 7 days of internship or 10 days of internship or a month-long internship. So this is attached to the curriculum itself. This is part of the curriculum and this is mandatory. In addition to it, what I would suggest is, for instance, the IITs, the NITs, the Indian Institute of Science, the Baba Atomic Center, periodically they organize internships. Of course, this is meant for science students, particularly at the postgraduate level. They have what is called summer internship for 30 days and winter internship for 30 days. And this is something prestigious. And you should be encouraging your students to go for internships that are organized by outside agencies, particularly nationally reputed educational institutions. Next is, I am sure you have a lot of departments. Every department has its own departmental club or departmental association. For instance, you have the English Association or the English Club, or you have the mathematics club or the mathematics association, and I'm sure there is a president, there is a vice president, there is a secretary, and the head of the department or the course teacher. Please ensure that these departmental associations or clubs are vibrant and dynamic and they are active throughout the year. Next is, as far as the fifth criterion is concerned, I suggest that you articulate your graduate attributes, and this is one of the requirements of NAAC. What do you mean by graduate attributes? A student graduating from St. Xavier's College, Jaipur, he or she, whether he or she is an undergraduate student or a postgraduate student, will possess the following qualities or attributes. He or she will have a social conscience. He or she will have good communication skills. He or she will be an entrepreneur. Okay, this is what we mean by graduate attributes. So I request the principal to organize one or two workshops and brainstorming sessions to list out the graduate attributes, and later you should formulate your graduate attributes, and NAAC demands that you upload it in the college website. Okay, so the public, the different stakeholders should be aware of the graduate attributes of your students. Then of course, yesterday I talked about the alumni associations. The college, St. Xavier's College, Jaipur Alumni Association. Now, every department can have at the micro level its own alumni association under the umbrella of the Common Alumni Association for the college. And you can also think of different chapters. I'm sure your alumni are spread throughout Rajasthan. Okay, you can have different chapters. And if there are alumni even outside the state, within the country, we can think of other chapters as well. So these are some of my suggestions as far as the fifth criterion is concerned. Now, when it comes to governance, leadership, and management, what is to be done? Now, the first thing is, okay, particularly in universities, there is a lot of clash. Okay, I'll explain this. The hierarchy is not spelled out very clearly. Okay, for instance, in one university that I visited, there was a problem between the registrar and the controller of examinations. What was the issue? The registrar said that hierarchically he is above the controller of examinations, whereas the controller of examinations claimed that he is not inferior to the position of the registrar's office. He says both are on par. Okay, so there was a tug of war between them, there was a problem. Now, many institutions, particularly universities, it is required that they have an organogram spelling out or articulating the organizational structure and the hierarchy, starting with the, okay, in your institution, who is the boss? I'm sure it is the provincial of Delhi. Then you have the, I am not very sure. Then you have the secretary, then you have the principal, then you have two vice principals. Who is vice principal one? Who is vice principal two? So an organogram is very important. And I am sure this is the month of July. So end of the month, you have the feast of the founder of the Society of Jesus, St. Ignatius of Loyola. So all staff members should know the legacy of St. Ignatius of Loyola, and all the students should also be sensitized to the vision and the mission of the Society of Jesus. Okay, if I go to, let us say, a BBA class and ask the students, who is St. Ignatius or who are the Jesuits, he or she should be able to answer this question. And particularly the young staff members who joined the college this year or last year or 2 years ago, they should have inherited, they should have imbibed the legacy and the vision and the mission of the college. Now, the third point that I want to highlight is the Jesuit administration should groom second line of leadership, third line of leadership. Okay, so 10 years from now, who will be heading the department? Who will be the IQAC coordinator? 10 years from now or 7 years from now, then the Jesuit administration should prepare them now itself. Okay, then form various committees. Okay, now under the revised NAAC methodology, you need to have many committees, not just a few committees. You need to have many committees. But very often what happens is committees are constituted, but they hardly meet and nothing is transacted. So the Jesuit management should see to it that decentralized administration. And what do we mean by decentralized administration? There are different committees to help the administration and the management, and these committees should be empowered to take their own decisions. Of course, the decisions need to be ratified by the Jesuit management or administration. And the last suggestion that I would like to give is, in most institutions, I repeat, in most institutions, whether it is a college or a university, the non-teaching staff are neglected. A lot of FTPs, a lot of seminars, a lot of workshops are organized for the teaching faculty, for the teaching fraternity, but hardly any program is being organized for the non-teaching faculty. So therefore, I request that you periodically organize programs for the non-teaching staff. For instance, very often we complain that the letters drafted by the office superintendent or the clerk is not in good English, is not very clear. Okay, if there is such a complaint, why 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 don't the people in the Department of English think of a one-day program or a two-day program for the non-teaching staff, a program on writing skills or basic grammar mistakes? You have a Department of Business Administration. Why don't you think of organizing a one-day program or a half-day program on basic managerial skills for the non-teaching faculty? Okay, so this is about the sixth criterion. And in the sixth criterion, an important component is the IQAC. And please look at the first sentence. The IQAC is the soul of the institution. Okay, it occupies a very important position. It is the soul of the institution. And looking at the composition of the IQAC, it should be as per NAAC norms. Okay, and very often what I find out when I visit colleges as a PhD member is they do not have student representatives in the IQAC, whereas NAAC insists that they should be a student representative in NAAC. Okay, please look into the NAAC document. It spells out who should be the members of the IQAC, the composition of IQAC. And IQAC should meet regularly. And one of the jobs of the IQAC is the AQAR solution regularly, and you should also participate in National Institutional Ranking Framework and the IQAC director to be in major committees. If there is a committee constituted to look into outcome-based education, the IQAC director should be part of it. If you want to look into a committee of research publications and projects, the IQAC director should be part of it. Because IQAC is the soul of the institution, its director should be in major committees. And one of the key responsibilities of the IQAC coordinator is to set benchmarks for each department and for the college as a whole. Now, what do I mean by setting benchmarks? For instance, okay, here is the Department of Maths. Here is the Department of Business Administration. Okay, there are two benchmarks. By the end of the academic year, you should have organized at least two seminars. One seminar for the teaching faculty and the other for the students. So this is the benchmark for you. Okay, you are the Department of Mathematics. Okay, this is the benchmark for you. By the end of this academic year, your department should have published at least 5 papers, put together at least 5 papers in peer-reviewed journals. So this is the benchmark. Okay, if no benchmarks, no growth. So therefore, it is essential that we set benchmarks. Individuals also need to set benchmarks for ourselves, and the institution as a whole should set benchmark for itself. And it is the job of the IQAC. Then it is the job of the IQAC to collect feedback from all stakeholders, not just the students, but even from the others, from the parents, and also the potential employers. Then I am sure IQAC has already conducted, has already organized academic audit, then organized FTPs. I am not sure if the IQAC at St. Xavier's College, Jaipur brings out a newsletter. If you already do it, very good, congratulations. If you do not have an IQAC newsletter, please think of an IQAC newsletter, maybe once in 4 months or one in each semester. You can have a print version or you can have an e-version and document all activities of the college. This is the major responsibility of the IQAC, and IQAC should help the institution and the faculty members in internalizing, not only internalizing, but also institutionalizing best practices, about which I will talk about a little later. Now we go to the last criterion. The last criterion, institutional values and best practices, 100 marks. Okay, so this is divided into three main components: gender equity. Okay, I'm not sure what is the percentage of girls in your college and what is the percentage of boys in your college. Okay, now when we talk of gender equity and women empowerment, Okay, what we should do is admit more girl students and get more women faculty. And in administration, at least one or two key posts should be given to women. Now, very often in my NAAC experience for more than 10 years, what we find is all the important posts. You take a university, what are the important posts? The registrar's post, the controller of examinations post, the IQAC director's post. All these posts are the dean curriculum, dean academic affairs, all key posts are given to men. But then how do you talk about women empowerment? So at least some key posts should be given to women because we talk of gender equity and we talk of women empowerment. And periodically, gender sensitization programs should be organized for everybody. And earlier, I talked about the departmental association, the departmental clubs, and ensure that you have a president, you have a vice president, you have a secretary, or you have a joint secretary. Please see to it that at least 50% of the posts are given to girl students. And maybe you can think of offering a paper on women's studies as an extra credit paper. So this is as far as gender equity is concerned. As far as environmental consciousness is concerned, now UGC encourages and NAAC encourages, and we also know because of global warming that we need to promote alternate energy sources. So maybe you can have solar panels and you can think of other sources of energy. And the district administration, the management has to look into waste management. The NAC document lists out different types of waste management: liquid waste management, solid waste management, biodegradable waste management, e-waste management. So all these are clearly spelled out in the NAC document. Then the government of India wants every institution to take up Swachh Bharat. So therefore, what you can do is, whenever you take up extension activities, some of the extension activities could be aligned with government programs. So this is two in one. Okay. Then maybe you can think of, I'm sure it is a tobacco-free campus. In addition to that, ensure that it is a plastic-free campus, and Rajasthan being a dry state. Okay, dry in the sense of scarce rainfall, not in another sense. Okay, you should think of rainwater harvesting. So this is about environmental consciousness. And my last point is about the disabled friendly campus. The government of India insists that 3% of the seats when it comes to student admission should be reserved for disabled students, should be reserved for physically challenged students. And the government of India also insists, particularly in aided institutions, that 3% seats should be reserved for the disabled staff members. I have not visited your campus, even though Father X invited me to come in person. Okay, I could not make it. That is why this online program. But if there is an opportunity later, I would come to the institution. Okay, ramps and handrails. I'm sure some of the important buildings have ramps, particularly your main auditorium. One side there should be a ramp and the other side there should be a handrail. The reason is obvious, so that those who are physically challenged can go up on stage with the help of the ramp and the handrail. Then I'm sure you have special toilets. Then some universities, my university for instance, we have a battery operated car. Maybe you can think of a donor, you can find a donor. If there are at least some 10, 15 physically challenged students, you can think of a battery operated car. You can get hold of funds from the local MP or the local MP or some industrialist. And what happens from the entrance of the college to the respective departments, they could be transported. This will be a huge service, but the viability, you need to look into it. And I have already talked about braille books and talking books in the library. And every year, December 3rd is to be observed as World Disabled Day. I am sure from this year onwards, 2021 onwards, we will be observing World Disabled Day. So, dear friends, I have taken 1 hour. I have talked about the 7 criteria, and with reference to each of the 7 criteria, what is to be done, what is mandatory, and what is optional. Now, I would like to talk about two more issues. Okay, what are the two more issues? I would like to talk about best practices, and I also would like to talk about institutional uniqueness or distinctiveness. Now, based on my experience as a NAAC assessor for more than 10 years, what I found is, I'm sorry to say, many institutions have not quite understood the meaning and the significance of best practices. I'm sorry to say this. I'll give you some examples. In one particular institution that I visited, I was the chairperson of the team. They pointed to the gym that they had established recently, and they said, "This is our best practice." In another institution, was a women's college, they had set up a herbal garden. It was a nice herbal garden. I have no quarrel with them. But they said this herbal garden is our best practice. Look at the term, it is a practice, not a physical entity. A classroom cannot be a best practice, a gym cannot be a best practice, a herbal garden cannot be a best practice, a well-maintained canteen cannot be a best practice. These are physical entities. What do you do with it? That can be a best practice. And please look at the second point. Because it is a practice, it should be dynamic. Something that you started, let us say, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, not what you started last week. Okay. So you started something 3 years ago, and over the years, we have tweaked it, we have fine-tuned it, we have made it better based on experience, based on feedback. So that is the second point. The third point is, in some institutions, when we ask them what is your best practice, they say mentoring is our best practice. Conducting remedial classes is a best practice. No, I don't agree with it. Why? Because mentoring is compulsory. Conducting remedial classes is compulsory. So what is compulsory? What is mandatory? That you cannot claim as your best practice. But then, if you do mentoring in an extraordinary way, then you can claim it as a best practice. But just the fact that there is mentoring in the institution, or the institution conducts remedial classes for the slow learners, you cannot stake your claim and argue that it is one of your best practices. Okay. Now, the fourth point I want to talk about is that I want to clarify is every department should identify its own best practices. The Department of Mathematics, the Department of Chemistry, the Department of Business Administration, the Department of English. So for every department, what are the best practices? Don't limit it to two. You can have three, you can have four, you can have five. You prioritize. Okay. Then at the college level, at the collective level, you can think of what will be the best practices for the institution. And as I said earlier, yesterday and today also, NAAC wants you to talk about two best practices. One could be related to academics and research, and the other could be related to extension and outreach activities. In fact, this is what some of the best institutions have done. I'll give you two examples. You look at St. Teresa's College, Ernakulam, their SSR is available on the website. They have an excellent outreach program for which they have won few awards. Okay, so one academic and one and the other could be related to extension and outreach activities. Okay, now NAAC has brought out a document. Of course, it is a little old. It is at least 15 to 20 years old. It is the NAAC Manual on Best Practices, authored by Dr. Anthony Stella and Professor Prasad. Professor Prasad was at that time the director of NAAC. The book is available on the NAAC website. It is a beautiful book. They talk about what is the best practice and how should we internalize the best practice and how should the best practice be institutionalized. Okay, so it is a beautiful document. Maybe the principal can constitute a committee to look into the best practices. So best practices are important, and this is the format given by NAAC as to how you should talk about your best practices. And the last point that I would like to talk about is in the revised NAAC accreditation framework, a new component has been introduced that is called distinctiveness or uniqueness. Now, if I were to come to St. Xavier's College, Jaipur, and ask you, okay, what is unique about your college? What is special about your college? What is distinctive about your college? What is it that you have? And what is it that the other institutions in Jaipur or Rajasthan, they do not have? So distinctiveness, okay, and this also to be decided collectively. So dear friends, I have taken quite some time and I have talked about what should be done when you're planning to go for your first cycle of NAAC assessment and accreditation. So how should you prepare yourself? What is the roadmap that is to be laid for you so that you achieve a good target? Now I go to the second part of my presentation. In the second part of my presentation, I would like to give you 25 suggestions, and I am sure if not all the 25 suggestions, at least some suggestions will be helpful to you as an institution, and I am sure some suggestions will be helpful to you as individual departments. Now the first one is you have different statutory bodies in the college. What are the statutory bodies? The Jesuit management, the governing body, the finance committee, the academic committee, the research committee. In many institutions, what happens is the core body, that is the governing body, that meets regularly because you need to take important decisions. The other statutory bodies, they do not meet regularly. Okay, if the statute says that the finance committee should meet twice a year, it should meet twice a year. If the statute says that the research committee at St. Xavier's College Jaipur should meet 4 times in a year or 3 times in a year, it should be 3 times or 4 times. Okay, so the first point is statutory body should meet regularly, and every time they meet, they should discuss the action taken report on the minutes of the previous committee. So this is my first point. My second point, I am not very sure, okay, but some of the best colleges and some best universities, this is one of their healthy practices. This is one of their outstanding practices. They have instituted awards. Every year, an award is given to the best teacher. Every year, an award is given to the best researcher, both for teachers and for students. And in my university, in addition to these two, the best extension worker, because mine is a Gandhian institution, Gandhigram Institute. Okay, the best extension worker, both among the staff and among the students. So, institute awards. Okay, you can think of other awards also. So this is to motivate and encourage and recognize the hard work put in by the staff and the students. Now the third point is website to be updated regularly. Now most institutions do not do this. Okay, now when colleges request me for some lecture, okay, either on NAAC or otherwise, I ask them, how often do you update your website? Now, the answer that I get is as and when required. Now, this I am not happy with this answer. It is not as and when required. No, I'm sure Father X is listening. Okay, you should say every Wednesday or every Friday, the college website will be updated. Okay, so you should fix a target, you should fix a timeline, not as and when required. Because very often what happens is a website is a very important place to visit for different stakeholders. I'll tell you why. Now, NAC asks me to visit an institution. I say yes. Then what happens after 2 or 3 weeks? NAC will send me all the documents. But what do I do? And what do most assessors do? Even before the NAC documents reaches, what we do is we go to the college website and try to get as much information as possible from the website. And very often what happens is the website is not updated. And when we go for the visit, they give us different data. Then I ask them, okay, but 10 days ago when I visited your website, these were the data, but now you are giving me a different set of data. Then the vice chancellor tells me, no, we updated it only yesterday. No, website is very important. Now this is admission time. What are the courses that you offer? Who are the staff members? Okay, so Now the public would be interested in all these details. So if you do not update your website, they will have not the latest details, but a little stale information and outdated details. So websites should be updated regularly. When I say regularly, every Monday or every Thursday or every Friday, okay, on a regular basis. The fourth suggestion, I have already talked about it. Extension activities to be undertaken by all the students throughout the year. And what kind of activities? General activities, and at the same time, department specific activities. Okay, and I also clarified what is the purpose of undertaking extension activities. This is to help the students imbibe a social consciousness and awareness. Then when it comes to gender equity and women empowerment, women to be appointed in some key posts. Then I'm sure you have an alumni association. I am not sure if it has been formally registered.
Yes.
Okay. So the principal says yes, I'm very happy. Then you can think of strengthen it and think of the activities of the alumni association. If you look into the NAAC document, 10 marks are allotted for alumni association, and the 10 marks are divided into 5 plus 5. The first 5 marks, you have to answer the question if you have an alumni association, if yes, whether it is registered. The second part of it, what has been the material and the non-material contribution of the alumni. Material would means the funds. Okay, goodwill alone is not enough. Okay, some material, some tangible, some visible contribution from the alumni. Next is send your students for internships. Then I don't know how many staff members of research projects, whether it is from the UGC or from the DST or from the ICSSR. Okay, so because yours is a young institution, a fledgling institution, you should have research projects. And the NAAC team visits you, okay, you should have at least 4 or 5 research projects. If you show zero, then that will reflect the college in a very bad light. Okay, now the last suggestion in this slide is, now very often it is difficult to get projects from the UGC or the DST because they are also facing a fund starvation or a fund crunch. Okay, so therefore now for the last 1 or 2 years, you don't get too many projects from the UGC or the DST. So the management can think of some fund for research. Maybe you can put aside, let us say, 5 to 10 lakhs, and every year from the interest, okay, you can sanction 3 or 4 research projects. I leave it to the management, but this is a suggestion. And there is one specific question in the NAAC manual. Does the college or does the university give seed money to the researchers? Okay, so you have to say yes. Okay, for which you need a corpus fund for the college and some corpus fund for research. Okay, now when it comes to the teacher profile, all faculty to get their PhDs, and those of you without PhDs, please complete your PhDs at the earliest, and those of you who have not enrolled for your PhD program, please do it at the earliest. And I am sure you have net qualified and set qualified staff members, every staff member to publish at least one research paper. I am happy that you already have 5 PG programs. That is a very good development for a young institution. My hearty congratulations. But I would like to know how many research departments are there. Okay, you have UG programs, very good. You have PG programs, excellent. But what about research programs? Because when the peer team visits you, they will ask you how many research departments are there. So you should have at least 1 or 2 research departments. Maybe the Department of English could be elevated to the status of a research department. I request the principal to work it out. Then when I talked about the first criterion, I talked about the choice-based credit system. Okay, the next academic year, you should introduce the choice-based credit system. This will help you academically, and this will also help you in terms of max scores. Then yesterday, when I was going through your website, I found out that you have a science department, but at least at the master's level, you do not offer any science program. So you're strong in arts, you're strong in humanities, but relatively weak in sciences. So you should think of organizing some science programs. Now, the easiest would be to start mathematics because it does not require a lab. If it is chemistry or physics, you require a sophisticated lab. Okay, so maths is easy to start. Okay, anyway, I leave it to the JSPIT administration because we have to do a need analysis before thinking of launching a program, and a home science department also could be launched because that will be useful, and that also comes under the science program. Then I have already talked about a bridge course. I have already talked about remedial course, and I am sure you have a lot of committees in the college. Please ensure wherever possible, I repeat, wherever possible, please have student representatives. For instance, in the IQAC, there should be a student representative. In the library committee, there should be a student representative. In the canteen committee, there should be a student representative. So wherever possible, incorporate and include student representatives. And I'm very happy that your IQAC is organizing this FTP. Now, every month, I repeat, every month there should be at least one FTP, not for 1 week or not for 5 days, maybe half a day or maybe one day. Okay, for instance, you can have a workshop on outcome-based education. Maybe September, you can have a workshop on autonomy. Maybe October, you can have a workshop on the new national education policy. So every month, you should have a seminar or a workshop, and then you invite a distinguished speaker. Dear friends, this is my last slide, and you have to transform your campus into a disabled friendly campus. What do I mean by this? You should have lifts or elevators, ramps, handrails, wheelchairs, and this is at the physical level, but then you also work it out at the attitudinal level. Okay, so when you say you have to change your campus into a disabled friendly campus, this is at two levels, at the architectural level and also at the attitudinal level. Then you should have a placement cell, and the Department of English, it is your responsibility to organize a soft skills training program for all the students of the college, particularly for the outgoing students. Then the IPAC should every year conduct an academic audit. In fact, I have written an article on how to conduct an academic audit. It was published in the University News. I'll give you the reference a little later. Then last night, when I was looking at your college website, I was happy to find out that you have signed a lot of MOUs. My hearty congratulations. But two observations. I think almost all your MOUs, you have signed it with your Jesuit counterparts. Okay, which is good. But then what I suggest is you go beyond your Jesuit network and sign MOUs with other universities, secular universities, and other research institutions. Okay, fine. Now, when we go for the NAAC creating visit, what we ask is, okay, we have signed an MOU, but what transpired? What is the outcome? What is the result? In many places, what they do is they signed an MOU, but then nothing comes out of it. Okay, so something tangible, something visible should have come out of the MOU. So please be prepared. Then my suggestion, because you are in the state of Rajasthan, and as I said earlier, I have visited Rajasthan 3 times for NAAC purposes, and one was a university, a private university. Now, you can also think of becoming a private university. I'm sure it is already on the mind of the rector, the principal, and the vice principal. So
Yes.
once you so Father Principal says yes. So my hearty congratulations and best wishes, because once you become a university, then you can introduce CBCS, you can introduce OBE, you can introduce the semester system. So whatever you want to introduce, but unfortunately cannot do so because you are an affiliated college. Once you become an independent and autonomous institution, that is, once you become a university, I'm sure you can implement all your dreams, you can realize all your dreams. And my last point is you are a young institution, so think ahead, plan ahead. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now. So you be futuristic. And finally, as you are preparing for NAAC, now what NAAC is interested in is, I'm sorry, this is very mundane, but still this is what NAAC wants. NAAC wants data. I repeat, NAAC wants data. Okay, so therefore, whatever you do, whether it is a big thing or a small thing, whether it is related to staff or related to students, whether it is related to sciences or related to humanities, please document it carefully and meticulously. Even a small point. For instance, 2 years ago, you must have organized an FTP. Okay, do you have a record for it? When was it organized? How many sessions? And who was the resource person? How many participants? What transpired? Do you have the minutes? Okay, so whatever you do, whether it is big or small, for NAAC purposes, you have to document it meticulously and you should keep files. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, so this is for today's presentation. So what I have done today is the first part of the presentation, the core of my presentation with reference to each of the 7 criteria. I have given you some suggestions, and these suggestions are of 2 categories: what you should do and what is desired. If you do it, you can get better scores. And towards the end, I have given you 25 suggestions for a better grade. So as you're preparing, going for the first cycle of NAAC assessment and accreditation, my greetings to you and my best wishes to you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And in case you have some questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, sir. Before moving on for the questions and answers, I must mention here that each and every point on your presentation, sir, and every sentence which you were speaking was so much valuable for us and was worth noting, so that we are really guided by your each and every point. It will greatly support us in working on the same platform. So now I open the session for the question and answers. Maybe one by one, we can start with the questions.
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. I have a question. I'm taking care of the 5th criteria, that is students' progression. In that case, especially when it is related to the placement, since it's an undergraduate college.
I'm sorry, it is not very clear. There is an echo.
Madam, those who ask question, kindly come to the mic. Come to Dr. Shika, madam, and then there's a mic there. It will be better. Maybe the next person also will be getting ready. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Now it is better.
Yeah, my question to you is, since we are in the steering committee and we are taking care of the 5th criteria, I would like to ask one thing regarding the placements. While fetching the data for the placements, those students who have been already placed by their own, that data can be taken in that a particular table or not, or the placement cell to whom the students have been, like the placement cell in charge, they have sent the students for the various companies, those data can be put. So I just want to know the difference. Usually it's a big problem for the college like our is an undergraduation college. So this is a big problem on fetching the data.
Okay, fine. Now, thank you for the question. I have 2 answers. Answer number 1. Okay, the placement record as far as colleges, particularly arts science colleges, and particularly for undergraduate programs, will certainly be low, and you need not be discouraged about it. Okay, had it been a technical institution, an engineering institute, a management institute, certainly the placement record will be high. But ours is an arts and science college, particularly a college that offers undergraduate programs. So therefore, the placement record will not be very high. and we need not worry about it because this is the national trend. Point number one. Point number two, the question is how many of your students are placed? NAAC is not asking you how many of your students are placed through your own placement bureau and how many of your students are placed on their own. So NAAC is not interested in those details. NAAC wants to find out how many of your students who passed out of your institution have found jobs. Okay, so it could be on their own, could be with the help of some staff members, it could be with the help of the placement bureau. So that is not very important. What is important is how many, what is the percentage of students who have been placed. But what is difficult is NAAC wants you to produce copies of the appointment letter. Now there are two problems here. Problem number one, particularly for students who have got placed on their own, very often we are not aware of it. So therefore we are not in a position to collect the appointment letter. And number two, even for those students who have got placement, sometimes they are not willing to share the appointment letter. So this is my own experience. But NAAC insists that if you claim that, let us say, from the Department of English, 12 students have got placement, then the head of the Department of English should produce 12 appointment letters. Now, there is a way to surmount this problem. There is a way to over this problem. Now, what happens is many institutions, my own department, the students have created a WhatsApp group, the students have created a Facebook group. Now, using this social media, it is easy to keep track of the students and their progression. So it's easy to find out which student has gone for higher studies and which student has got placed where and what is the salary. So we can use social media effectively and try to gather as much details as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, another question
Yes.
regarding the internships. The companies which are sending the internship letters to us regarding the students who have been put forward for the internship. So we need to keep those internship letter in our custody and for the data compilation.
Okay, now there are 2 points. Now earlier means we are in 2021. The new guidelines came into effect 2 years ago, and as I said earlier, I was part of the committee that drafted the new methodological framework. Now earlier, what NAAC wanted was that so-and-so did his or her internship in this company or this institution or this factory. So the letter alone was sufficient. But the letter is absolutely important because only the letter will speak. Okay, so you can't say that so many students went for internship. The principal can't say these students went to this particular company for internship. Only the letter from the respective company will speak for the students. Now, the latest development as far as internships is concerned is a slightly complex affair. Now, NAAC wants you to sign an MOU with that particular company or organization so that you can send your students to that particular company or organization for internship. So if the head of the department produces a letter from the company stating that last academic year 10 students went to this organization for internship, now NAAC will ask you a further question. Now, before sending the students, did you sign an MOU with that organization? So therefore, what I request is, whenever you send your students for internship, you also try. Sometimes you don't succeed. This is a reality. You also try to sign an MOU with that particular institution or organization, wherein you clearly mention that part of the agreement will pertain to sending the students to your organization for internship. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the call, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Yashwardhan this side.
Good
Just
afternoon.
to add a corollary to that placement question, sir, sometimes what happens is, let's say our student they have graduated from our college and they have gone for a post-graduation in some other institution.
Okay.
And they are placed. So then if they're placed from those postgraduate institutions, can we show their placement as our placement? Because that is also one important doubt in the minds of all the teachers also.
Okay, now I would like to clarify. A student, an undergraduate student going for postgraduate program to another institution, you show it under student progression. How many of your students went for higher studies? UG to PG, PG to research. You show it under student progression. How many of your students went for higher studies? But you cannot take credit for his or her placement because the immediate institution will take credit for his or her placement. If he or she has got a job immediately after the undergraduate program, you can take credit for it. On the other hand, that student did his or her BA in your college and went to another institution for his or her MA and then got placed. So that institution will claim credit for that and not your institution. What you can do is you can list it under student progression. So many of your students, undergraduate students, went for higher studies.
Thank you, sir. So basically, we call them as we fit in them under the student progression, and if they are placed right after the graduation or they have become an entrepreneur, then they are part of our placement.
Yes, yes, absolutely right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I too was thinking in the same way. Many of the students, especially from the BCom and BBA sections, are coming from the business background, business communities. So they come for a degree, after which they go back to their family business. So I am thinking of making it as a kind of creating more and more enlightened entrepreneurs.
Precisely, Father.
That will come as a student progression, I suppose, instead of placements.
You can show them, you can project them as entrepreneurs, as you rightly pointed out. And you can even create a cell for entrepreneurship in the college.
One of the problems in our college we face is we have though 5 sections of 5 MBA, sorry, 5 PG programs. They're not doing very well. Admissions are not very impressive. But we willy-nilly, we have to go for the accreditation of the whole college, both UG and PG. But PG has been, it has been started very late, all the courses for that matter. And then the numbers, admissions are not very encouraging. Any way out? Can we show only the UG for NAAC? But ours is a composite college.
No, Father, we have to show everything.
Exactly.
We have to show everything.
So, but unfortunately, our PG is a weak link.
Oh. Anyway, we will discuss that separately.
Separately. I request the staff to clarify some of your doubts now because professor may not be available later.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
That's
As a
all.
As a librarian, I have a question. For online resources, we have membership of InLiftNet for Enlist program.
Okay, okay, very good.
So we can access e-journals, e-books, and shows Sindhu, shows Sunidhi, shows Ganga, and shows Gangotri, and many of online free resources like National Digital Library, DOAJ, DOB, e-books directory, and many more. I have a question. Is there any other online resource, paid resource membership for NAAC purpose? Or
Okay, fine. Okay, now there are 2 kinds of online resources. There are 2 categories of e-resources. Now for colleges, Enlist is basic. Now for universities, they give a better package with more e-resources. Okay, so this is my first clarification. Now my second clarification is, now you are a member of the consortium, the InfliNIT consortium, and you have got Enlist and you have got access to the resources. All these are wonderful. Now NAAC will want to ask you, how many users are there and how frequently are these materials accessed and downloaded? Do you have any statistical data? And the library itself, they will ask you about the footfall. how many staff members and how many students physically visit the library every day, and what have you done to increase the number of people who visit the library every day. So NAAC will ask you these two questions. E-resources are available, but how many access them and how many have downloaded articles? And number two, the footfall, how many physically visit the library, and how many staff members and how many students, and what have we done to improve the number of visitors to the library?
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, I have a query related like in criteria 3, you mentioned that students should be motivated for teaching in local schools so that they can and their subject oriented extension activity should be done in criteria 3. Same when we come to the criteria 7 best practices. So this could be also considered as a best practices. So my question is, sir, when it comes to documentation, will it be overlap, or we can document it both separately? So will we get the credit of same activity in both the criterions, or we can have to furnish?
No, the same activity could be shown in two different places, but the focus should be different. Now, once you show it as one of your best practices, then obviously the focus is a little broader, a little larger. You have to talk about how many people benefited, what was the outcome, and for how many years have you been doing it, how can you make it better, what is the financial support that you receive, what additional financial support do you require to carry it forward. So you need to answer a different set of questions when you show it as your best practice. But then when you show it as an extension activity, you need to talk about it from a different angle. What is the social consciousness that it has created? And what is the change that it has brought about in the students and in the village community where you rendered your services. So two things. Number one, you can show one activity in two places, but the perspective is obviously different.
Right. Then one more thing.
Yes. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just saying that when it comes to best practices, the departmental, when we furnish the data, it has to be done solely on the basis of the college activity, or it has to show separately into departments. When it comes to documentation, so it should come as a departmental activity or as such, or some total.
Okay. I understand your question. You have to show it as a departmental activity. For instance, the Department of English has visited this rural school, and for the last 9 months, okay, we have been visiting the school every Thursday or every Friday from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 4 o'clock in the evening. And our students taught them some grammar, taught them some spoken English, taught them some writing skills. This has been going on for the last 9 months, and this is the outcome. And this is the certification by the school headmaster and by the village panchayat president. So all these you can document it for your department. Now, when you project it as one of the best practices of the college, now what they have to do is the IQAC coordinator or the NAAC steering committee coordinator, they cannot show just your department, they will show the extension activities of the college, taking into account all the departments and all the activities. So they need to build up a broader picture and from a holistic point of view, whereas you from one particular department, you would be talking about your own departmental activities, whereas when you talk about the best practice of the college, it should be from a broader synoptic, holistic perspective.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, you mentioned that in certificate course and value-added course, in-house faculties, and it could be blend from outside resource persons also, depending on the course. So I want to ask that will that the teaching load it would be counted as a favorable for the APIs of the faculties, or it would be more countable from the college perspective, teaching criteria number two, that the load that teachers are taking apart from their normal teaching load, they are taking any certificate course or value-added course. So
Okay, now there is no standard practice across the country. Different institutions follow different practices. Now, I would like to point out two factors. Number one, generally speaking, I mean, this is not the norm as such. Generally speaking, in different colleges, in different universities, if I offer a certificate course out of my own interest and in my own area of specialization, normally, as I said earlier, this is not the norm, but normally it is not taken into the workload. If I have to teach 16 hours, no concession is given to me because I am doing a certificate course or I am doing a diploma course. So generally, it is not taken into an account. Okay, fine. Then some teachers will ask, then what is the benefit for me? Because I am putting in extra time, I am putting in extra effort. So what is the benefit for me? That is a legitimate question. So therefore, some institutions, what they do is, some institutions, and once again, this is not a norm, what they do is the money that is collected as students' fee, maybe 50% of it goes for the teacher. So that is one way of encouraging the teacher to offer to run a certificate course or a diploma course. Okay, now I leave it to the
yes,
management because
yes,
as
sir.
I said, different institutions follow different norms.
Thank you, sir. One more doubt, sir.
Ah, yes.
That the department level journals are favorable and the publications are more acceptable from the NAAC perspective if it has got more advisory boards from outside. So we have two systems. We have college level publications too, which where we combine in the research works of the college, all the departments, and we have separate department publications. So regarding the ISBN publications, there are certain publications of student journals which are not running with ISBN. So what is the importance of that, taking that ISBN number? Should we go to have all the publications for ISBN number, or the student journals can we continue? So there is a doubt on this.
Okay, now there are 2 points that I want to emphasize. Now, ISBN, okay, ISBN is given for books and ISSN is given for journals. Now, ISBN, ISSN are important, but sorry to say, at the same time, not very important because different publishing houses, by giving money, they are able to get ISBN and ISSN for their books and for journals. So therefore, at the national, at the international level, not much importance is given for this ISBN and ISSN. That is very unfortunate. Okay. Now, from another dimension, how are books assessed and particularly how are journals assessed? Okay. Now, journals are assessed on the basis of whether it is a peer-reviewed journal or not. And if it is a peer-reviewed journal, what is the editorial policy? Is it a single blind review or is it a double blind review? If it is a double blind review, then it has got a lot of credibility. Okay, now I'll very briefly clarify what is a peer-reviewed journal. There is a board of editors, not from the same institution from where the journal is published. Okay, neutral people, experts in the area, they go through the article and they certify yes, it is worthy of publication. So that is the meaning of peer review, academic peers, experts in that area. Now, what is the meaning of a single blind review and what is the meaning of a double blind review? Now, I review a lot of articles. Now, when I review an article, most of the times I do not know who the author of the manuscript is and what is his or her institutional affiliation. So, which means there is absolutely no bias on my part because I do not know who is the author, whether it is a he or a she, whether it is from a college or from a university, whether it is from within the country or outside the country. So I do not know. So therefore, my assessment will be to a large extent fair and objective. This is called a single blind review. A double blind review is the reviewer does not know who the author is, and the one who submitted the manuscript, he or she also does not know who the reviewer is. That is called blind review. So at the international level, they insist on two things. Number one, it should be a peer-reviewed article, and it should have gone for a double blind review process. Then it is credible, it is acceptable.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So when we talk about research, my question is that we should go for original research, and to check that do the institution need to have the plagiarism software to check the plagiarized researches?
Okay, now I would insist that all institutions go in for this plagiarism check, even though since you are not a research institution, your students, they do not submit MPhil dissertations or PhD thesis, so therefore the plagiarism check is not needed at the highest level, that the university will take care. But what I suggest is, this is what they do in the West, even for a class assignment or a class submission, you have to go through the plagiarism check. So that ethical standard, that sense of ethics is instilled in the students, even for class assignments and class submissions. So maybe we can do that. And since the librarian tells me that the institution is already part of the Infleetnet consortium, I'm sure you must have got some plagiarism check also. Koha? Is the librarian there? Can you please answer me? Has the Infleetnet given you a software to check plagiarism? Koha?
No, sir. No.
Okay, then maybe the institution, you can buy your own software. The UGC prescribes Koha, but at the international level, it is Authenticate offered by Turnitin. And so at least at the PG level, forget about the undergraduate level, at least at the PG level, the students can be trained, they can be taught that there is something called plagiarism. Even a classroom assignment should go through that process. I think that will be a wonderful training.
Sir, thank you, sir. My next question is that in the
Can you please show your face now? We are not able to see who is speaking. Professor Durai will be happy to see you. Yes.
Okay.
Sir, for the criteria 3, you have mentioned about incubators.
Oh.
Does that mean that the institution should have an incubation cell to promote startups?
Okay, now what I would suggest is some of the questions in NAAC, okay, they are not directly aimed at arts and science colleges. Okay, a college which offers traditional arts and science programs, like to talk of incubation and to talk of incubators. I don't think we can easily talk about it, because originally the idea of incubation and the concept of incubators, that is associated with engineering institutions and management institutions. That is where you incubate ideas and encourage people to go for startups and become entrepreneurs. But in an arts and science institution, the scope is there, but the scope is much less. Okay, since you have a Department of Business Administration, and you can think of some kind of incubation. Some kind of an incubation may not be at an advanced level as an engineering college or an institute of management will have. Be at your own level, you can have some kind of an incubation and some kind of an incubator. At least that will satisfy the NAAC requirements.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
With your experience, can you just suggest any best practices which our institute should follow?
No, I do not know the institution. I'm sorry. Maybe when I visit the institution, now all that I know is I know your principal and I visited your website. I spent some 30 to 45 minutes looking at your website. So based on this, I cannot suggest. Maybe when I visit your institution and when I spend a couple of days and interact with all of you, maybe I can think of something.
Thank you, sir. We look forward to have you here.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Please introduce yourselves.
So one question is that if a student has cleared his MA, his or her MA in 2 years back and cleared NET after that, so can we include that student also, whether the NET or SLET or other subjects?
No, no, you can't claim credit for that because the institution where he or she did his or her MA, that institution will claim credit
So
for it. And
if
for
the
you,
student has done MA from our college only, and after 1 year or 2 years, that person has cleared NET or SLET or any other competitive exams, then
you can claim, there is no problem.
Sort of progression.
Even though there is a time gap, okay, even though there is a time gap, you can still claim because the master's program was done at your institution. So you can claim by all means.
okay. And one more, sir, regarding which courses or remedial classes can we ask our students, those who are good in academically, can they also be the part of taking classes for bridge courses and remedial classes?
Okay. Now this is an interesting point. I like this idea. I support this idea, but keep it to the minimum. Okay, what we call peer teaching, right? Students teaching weak students. This is a healthy practice. This is to be encouraged, but then this should be kept to the minimum. Otherwise, what happens is, I'm sorry to say, please excuse me, some teachers exploit this. If there are 30 classes, they dump the entire workload on some students or some research scholars, and practically they run the program. That should be avoided, but peer teaching is a healthy concept and that should be encouraged.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. So my question is that since we are an affiliated college and we do not have this facility of credit transfer, every department does organizes add-on courses, and apart from that, we are the part of SWAYAM local chapter also, and we also offer courses from SWAYAM platform. My question to you is, sir, that does that SWAYAM courses qualifies the criteria of add-on courses?
No, what I would suggest is SWAYAM is different and add-on is different because add-on is offered by you, whereas SWAYAM is offered by somebody else and your students enroll themselves for the program offered by that platform. So these are two different entities. Okay. Now coming to the credit transfer, the Association of Indian Universities, AIU, that has been debating the issue of credit transfer now for the last 20-25 years. I am aware of it. Now, only recently, because of the pandemic, most of the transaction is happening online. Only recently did the UGC come up with the idea of credit transfer. So if you look into the latest communication from the UGC, they specify the amount of credit transfer, but in your case, Rajasthan University has to ratify it and they have to issue a circular to their respective colleges that they can go in for credit transfer. Till that happens, I think you should not be talking about credit transfer, but you should be encouraging the students to enroll for the NPTEL courses and for the MOOC courses.
So my question, the same line is that in which criteria does these courses will fall? Criteria 2, sir, or criteria 1, since we do not apply for that, does it falls under the criteria 2?
Or you can show it under both criteria. Criterion 1 talks about curriculum and criterion 2 talks about teaching, learning and evaluation. Okay, now if you are offering SWAYAM courses, then you show it as show it under the second criterion. But you are not offering, but your students enroll for such courses, then you show it under criterion 1. But there will be some overlap and then you need not get unduly worried about this.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Coordinator of the college, St. Xavier's College. I want to ask one thing. That, sir, is it important to display and upload every details of every individual activity, whatever we conduct within our college or outside of the college? One, this thing, and like from NAAC perspective, shall we upload the information from last 5 years? All the information should be uploaded for last 5 years, or the current academic year is sufficient?
Okay, now my answer is twofold. Now, I am not able to exactly specify, but what I would suggest is if you look into the NAAC document, if you look at the questionnaire, for certain questions, NAAC makes it very clear that they need the data for the last 5 years. For certain other areas, NAAC makes it very clear, abundantly clear, that they need data only for the previous academic year. So accordingly, you answer. The question itself will carry the clarification. When you answer the question within brackets, need data for the assessment period, that is for the last 5 years, or need data only for the last, that is for the previous academic year. So accordingly, you can furnish the details.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, one question.
Yes, Father.
Does NAAC look at the number of the students and the attendance of the students throughout the year? Does it have any say?
I'm not very sure, but then the individual staff members have to submit the attendance record. The individual staff members have to submit not only the attendance record, but also the teaching plan, the course outcome. They have to do a lot of work. Okay, I am sure about this fact that the staff, the teaching staff, they have to submit the attendance register to the institutions, and so which means it is required by NAAC. Okay, but I'm not exactly sure of it.
But we are having all this one on the mobile, like online attendance also. So we will not have a kind of a register form, hard copy as such.
Maybe on the eve of the NAAC visit, then maybe you can take printouts and convert it into hard data.
Okay.
Sir, very good afternoon. I'm Father Sherry, the Vice Principal of this college.
Yes, Father.
I have a doubt. Now, we have around 40 committees and clubs all together, and regular meetings and everything should be there, and the documentation should be kept. How can we justify, or how can we manage the timing? Because one side we have the regular classes. See, we have 6 hours a day, and the regular classes are there, the meetings. How the other colleges are managing this?
Father, it is very simple. Now, most of the committees, you are not going to meet on a daily basis. For instance, the research committee, tell me how many times is it going to meet? Maybe one in a semester. Okay, so which means it is manageable. All the departmental clubs or the departmental associations, how often do they meet? Okay, they do not meet even once a month. They meet, let us say, once in 3 months or once in 4 months. So the periodicity is not very frequent. So therefore, you can manage. Most of the committees, okay, so the periodicity will be once in 3 months or once a semester, sometimes even once in an academic year. So therefore, the burden will not be there. You're not going to meet every day.
Thank you, sir.
Very good afternoon, sir. So my question is related to the IPR cell. Though in our college, it's a very newly established cell. So what we are doing exactly is we are organizing the seminars and workshops for the students as well as for the faculties. And sir, apart from these, what extra we can do? As like it's being suggested that teachers should go for their patents and all.
Okay, fine. Now the question is, thank you for asking me this question. Now, what is the purpose of establishing an intellectual property rights cell, a cell for IPR? Okay, now you have given me the answer. The answer is twofold. Number one, to spread awareness on intellectual property rights among staff and among students. So this is the primary job of the cell for IPR. But as you suggested, it doesn't stop here. The establishment of the cell for IPR, intellectual property rights, should eventually lead to the filing of patents. Okay, that is the purpose. That is the real purpose of establishing a cell for IPR. But to be very frank, this is not likely to happen in an arts and science institution. Okay, maybe in an engineering institution, in an NIT or in an IIT or in Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru, this is likely to happen, but not very likely in an arts and science institution. But all the same, we will have the cell for IPR so that the students get to know and the staff also get to know some awareness and some idea of what we mean by intellectual property rights, and so that there are no copyright violations. At least that part we can address to ensure that there are no copyright violations. Whether it leads to the filing of a patent or not, that is a bigger question. And it needs a bigger platform as well.
One more question, like sir, I got my patent.
Oh, you got your patent. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. So, but it was like around 7 years ago. But now, when it comes to the NAAC, the SSR report, and also we have to just produce the data for the last 5 years. So,
yes.
Can as an institute we can show it there, or will we get some extra add-on for that, or?
I am not very sure. But since NAAC wants data only for the last 5 years, that is the assessment period, obviously you cannot show it. But still the principal and the NAAC steering committee can show it in your SSR, mentioning the year. It is not during the assessment period, but however, we would like to record that one of our faculty members mentioned the name as got a patent in this particular domain in the year. Okay, so that you are not fudging the data, you're accurate and honest with your data, but at the same time, you make it very clear that a faculty member has got a patent, and that is a significant dimension to the achievements of the college.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for all your insights.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Clarity, I would request you to make it more clear for all of us. We already have journals, as you mentioned and noticed on our website. Do we need to just keep them as double peer reviewed, a double blind peer review? Do we need to make them that? Or should we also, along with it, make efforts to get them UGC care listed? And even faculty research papers, only UGC care listed papers should be considered authentic, or double blind peer reviewed journals also are acceptable?
Okay, now you have asked me two questions. Now the second question, you have asked me directly if UGC care publications alone are taken into considerations. Now the answer is a little vague, is a little ambiguous, because if you go to science, they say if it is a science indexed journal, okay, then it is taken into consideration. Don't worry about UGC care. If it is an SCI journal, if it is an SCI journal, it is certainly taken into consideration, irrespective of whether the UGC has taken into its consideration or not. But invariably, SCI journals are there in the UGC care list. Okay, so there is some confusion, but UGC insists that at least for promotion, in universities and colleges, we have assistant to associate and associate to professor and professor to senior professor. They will take into consideration only publications in UGC journals, but that is also a debatable issue. So this is the second part of the discussion. Now the first part of the discussion, now I am not aware of the composition of your editorial board. Is it all from inside the college or you have members from outside the college? I think that you need to clarify. And do you have it from within the state or outside the state as well and outside the country as well? So in other words, the question that I would like to raise is how competent and how credible is the editorial team? So that is the first point. And the second point is a peer review is enough. Okay, these days we do not insist on a double blind review. That happens at the international level because I am the founding editor of a journal in my own university called Gandhigram Literary Review. It is a peer reviewed journal, not necessarily a blind review. Okay, so all that we want to find out is whether the editorial board is competent and credible and whether submissions are peer reviewed by a competent authority. If the answer is yes to both, then you please go ahead.
All right, right. Thank you, sir.
Sir, one last brief question, sir. We are a registered center now for Unnat Bharat Abhiyan and Swachhata Action Plan, 2 government flagship programs.
Very good.
As a mandate of these programs, we are supposed to do extension activities in the neighborhood areas. So whatever activities we plan through these programs, can we show these under the extension activities third criteria because that carries 60 marks, or it has to be the institution-led activity which can be shown in that criteria?
Okay, very good. So first of all, my congratulations. Now what I would suggest is you have 2 levels or 2 categories of extension works. Whatever you do under Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, you show it as extension activities, but do not restrict yourself, do not confine yourself to such activities. In addition to that, you think of other creative types of outreach and extension activities. Okay, so you hold on to the activities carried out under the umbrella of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. But in addition to that, the Department of English, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Sciences can think of their own extension activities. Okay, so let it be twofold.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for clearing all our doubts. Although we have n number of more questions in our mind, maybe we'll get in touch with you with our queries in the near future. So before moving on further, I would like to request our principal, Reverend Father Rex Angelo, for his closing remark and expression of his words of gratitude for Professor Joseph.
Clarity. Thy name is Professor Joseph Durairaj. It's no exaggeration to say that we had 2 sessions of very useful information on the NAAC with such a clarity that we are getting more and more doubts. As Descartes said, I doubt, therefore I exist. Now, what Professor Durairaj has given is a kind of impetus. When I took over the college last year, seeing the status of the college, I immediately thought of an external audit headed by Father Joseph Xavier from Madurai province, and also Father Joy James, who was also principal of Trivandrum St. Xavier's, who got at the time the highest accreditation, I think 3.7 something, and also Dr. Odetta from Stella Maris College. And they were very eager to come, but unfortunately the pandemic could stop their coming to our college. On one hand, we have been doing a lot of things. On the other hand, we have done it, without any sense of direction. Now, such inputs from such eminent persons should give us a motivation how to organize the data, how to present it well with all our analysis and our future plan. I am very grateful to Professor Joseph Durairaj. When I was thinking about this seminar, I was asking our IQAC coordinator, Mr. Yash, and he too was thinking about Professor Joseph Durairaj only. Great minds think like this. So I was happy that the IQAC also was thinking about Professor Zorairag because he is a very popular resource person. I had the privilege of listening to him on several occasions on different topics. I am very grateful to you on my own behalf and on that of all the staff here for the wonderful, insightful, informative inputs which you have given us. This is not the end of your interaction with us. This is just the beginning. We will keep contacting you and we'll be delighted to have your esteemed presence in our campus as and when it is possible. So my sincere thanks to you for the wonderful sessions, and soon we'll be happy to see you in our campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Rex. I will certainly make it when an opportunity. Thank you.
So thank you so much, sir. I hope you've heard the round of applause the staff has given to you. That was indeed an expression of gratitude from all the teaching and non-teaching staff who got the opportunity to attend these 2 days. Thank you so much, sir. We really had a very good time and a great learning experience. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Wish you all the best. Thank you.
So, I also would like to thank all the people who have been part of this learning experience. Thank you for being present here, and may you all have a good day and a great learning experience in the upcoming days of the workshop. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot to the members of the IQAC.
Yes.
Your work begins now. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Joe. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Father Rex. We will meet soon. Thank you.